Well, that's it. Already, Jill, go.
Up to 60 miles per hour. That's a look at the big weather story of the day. Here's a closer look at your day ahead. So, not really feeling that summer heat for the upper Midwest. We're going to be in the upper 30s to lower 40s. We lose all the cloud coverage we saw across the Northeast yesterday, and finally, more sunshine back in the upper 50s.
Did this ever say critical fires? How all of a
So,
sudden now we
we're
got
setting up for a
fires?
very active pattern going into the weekend, severe weather.
Well, even more reason to stay in. Thank you, Janessa.
A Missouri man is facing charges after police say that he posted a video of himself licking merchandise at Walmart to mock fears of the coronavirus pandemic. The video reportedly shows 26-year-old Cody Lee's sister licking deodorants and saying, "Who's scared of coronavirus?" Sister was arrested and charged with making a second-degree terroristic threat.
But this is the road that
The coronavirus continues to spread globally, infecting everyone from everyday people to politicians, celebrities, and now the royals. The royal family has announced that Prince Charles, who's first in line to the British throne, has tested positive for COVID-19. According to his office, the Prince of Wales is experiencing mild symptoms, but, quote, otherwise remains in good health. Charles is now self-isolating and working from home, but the Queen is said to be doing fine. In a statement from Buckingham Palace, they say that Charles's mother remains in good health. And she last saw her son briefly March 12th.
After weeks of reporting a decline in the number of new coronavirus infections, life in China, the former epicenter of the virus, is beginning to emerge from
I just want to be able to talk.
And in Europe, the virus continues
After
to run
dealing-
rampant, where it continues to hundreds by the day.
First step,
For more, we turn to
get the
NBC's Elliot
power.
Ringy live in London. And
Okay,
Elliot,
we
give
good.
us an update on
I
how
got
Prince
this.
Charles is doing.
That's right, and the palace says that he's
Okay, I'll
doing
talk
well,
about
that
it.
he showed minor symptoms, and he's self-isolating in
I can do
Scotland
it
right
right
now.
What are
His
you doing
wife
with it?
hasn't tested positive
It is
for
bad.
the
It's
virus,
not- it's
and
not-
as you guys mentioned,
Okay.
he last saw
Have you ever-
his mother, the Queen, on the 12th of March, and the palace say that she is in good health too.
Okay, yeah.
Now over to
That's it.
Spain, where the number
you
of
ever
deaths
when they
keeps
give it
climbing, with a
somebody-
record 738 new fatalities reported in one day, bringing the total to almost 3,650, surpassing China's tally. Spain's death toll is only second to Italy. Even the country's deputy prime minister
But
has
then I think
tested
you go
positive.
to all of these
In
countries.
Italy, while the number of deaths
These are the
more or
numbers.
less climbs steadily each day, the rate of growth of new infections continues to slow bit by bit. Nonetheless, Italy has been ravaged and still has the largest death toll anywhere in the world, currently at just over 7,500. In Israel, the government says it may have to impose a complete lockdown except for essentials such as food and medicine, which means they would join a third of the global population estimated to be under lockdown. Francis, that's a mind-boggling figure of over 3 billion people in lockdown across the world. But in Hubei, China's epicenter of the coronavirus outbreaks, curbs are being lifted, very strict curbs that were in place there since the outbreak, that's allowing people to leave Hubei and families to reunite with one another.
Did I
More
tell you all
signs of
that?
normalcy there, and signs that we need to see. Thank you, Ellie.
Go.
No, first it was in China.
They still have
Then
no
within,
passport.
then
In
within
today's
2
Quick
days,
Hits,
it was
music
everywhere
legend
else.
Elton John is hosting a live benefit concert this Sunday on Fox to raise money for groups fighting to stop the coronavirus pandemic. It'll feature performances from artists like Alicia Keys, Billie Eilish, and many more.
A runner in France wasn't going to let the coronavirus lockdown stop him from going the distance. He ran the length of a full marathon on his 23-foot-long balcony. That is over 26 miles. He did it in 6 hours and 48 minutes.
So impressive and dedication, too. Kylie Jenner has donated $1 million to help purchase face masks and other protective gear amid this coronavirus pandemic. Her doctor thanked her for the donation on Instagram, writing, "It'll help provide hundreds of thousands of supplies."
As the coronavirus pandemic accelerates, so does our knowledge about this disease and its symptoms. Physicians are noticing some patients have moderate symptoms for about a week and then get better, while other patients have mild symptoms for about a week, but then get suddenly worse. Here's NBC's Joe Fryer.
Two different strands. And I think
Some patients, doctors say the first phase of COVID-19 is more like a slow burn, with moderate symptoms for several days, even a week, before things rapidly go downhill, similar to the experience of Congressman Ben McAdams, who spoke with Today last Thursday.
I'm feeling pretty bad. I think this is probably the worst cold I've ever had, but we're getting by.
Over the first 6
Oh,
days of
shit.
McAdams'
Have you
illness,
noticed
his
that?
symptoms included a cough, fever, and shortness of breath.
My lungs were really constricted. I felt like I had
I
a
know it
belt
was at the
around
lab.
my chest. So
But on Friday, a day after this
Smile
interview,
forward.
McAdams was hospitalized, saying, I experienced severe shortness of breath and struggled to maintain my blood oxygen at appropriate levels. He says he's now feeling relatively better. In addition to the well-known
What you gonna do
coronavirus
with-
symptoms, fever, cough, headache, and shortness of breath, doctors now say some patients may lose their sense of smell and taste. Utah
Didn't I say
Jazz player Rudy Gobert, who tested positive, tweeted, haven't been able to
No,
smell anything
doesn't
for the
do
last
symptoms.
4 days. Experts say
When I
if
first
that
said that,
happens, and
I
if
thought
it's
it
your
was
only
new. How can
symptom
it
and
be
you
new?
don't have allergies, call your doctor.
That does seem to be a little bit more of a common thread that I think was underappreciated initially.
Dr. Keith Mortman at George Washington University Hospital stresses everyone, even young people, needs to take coronavirus seriously. He made this video showing the extent of damage done to the lungs of an actual 59-year-old patient who's
No, but
in critical
some people
condition
have sinus
with
anyway, that-
COVID-19.
No, I
They
know.
can't
This
use
is
that
not
as
the
a symptom.
common flu. This is not your garden variety pneumonia. This is something that we have not seen or experienced before, and we all have to do our part, and we all have to take it seriously.
Dr. Mortman says it's still way too early to know the long-term damage caused by coronavirus, even in younger patients.
Yeah.
Joe Fryer, NBC News.
I'm gonna pause this real quick, and if we do, we start fucking.
Hi, everyone. We're doing all we can to flatten this curve. Yesterday, we had a dramatic drop, but you can see latest data
That's all
now
I need to
in
know.
by region. It has increased dramatically.
See, that's too
All we
small. I gotta
really
let her
need
see.
is some sense of consistency. We'll watch this for, again,
No,
for the
no,
next
but you
3
didn't
to
look at
5 days and hopefully start to see a downward trend. We'll be right back.
Yo, that's exactly what he told me.
A growing number of hospitals are imposing strict measures on who they are letting in, and it's causing anxiety for pregnant women. Here's NBC's Katie Beck.
At 8 months pregnant, Carly Bertolino lives in constant fear of contracting COVID-19.
Okay, what you
It's horrible time for all pregnant ladies.
This week, more worry. News from her doctor that she may have to give birth to her first child without her husband in the delivery room.
You picture
That's
this
old.
milestone
What they keep bringing it back
since
up?
you're a little girl, and
Why do we care?
not
about that
having my
right now?
husband there potentially is
Huh?
it's heartbreaking.
Hospitals
Excuse me,
across
you
the
haven't gone to
country
these
drafting
classes.
new
You can shut
standards
them up.
to restrict the
I'm
number
saying,
of
why is
people
it
allowed
so
inside
overlooked?
delivery
You
rooms,
picking it up?
even limiting the number
What
of
about the people
in-person
that are
prenatal
dying with it?
checkups.
Okay, I understand she
Several
got-
hospitals in
she
New
having a
York
baby,
banning
but
spouses
how many
and
bitches had
partners
babies
entirely.
when they're
The
no
anxiety now
doubt?
driving many pregnant women
Like,
to
dude, how
explore
many
delivering at
people-
home
But you
or in a
know,
birth
I
center.
hope y'all
We're getting swamped
Calls to
Well, you-
midwife Karina Hassel surging.
every day, all day, into the night, of women
Yeah.
asking if
So
they're
what's the
appropriate candidates for out-of-hospital birth and if we have
Don't
space.
tell them, don't tell
While
them.
giving birth at home
But
may
what's the
reduce chances of a COVID-19 exposure, the decision to have a baby outside of a medical
Don't
facility
think about it.
presents a
What's the
whole
cure?
new set of risks.
That includes
You
an
know
increased
it
risk
is.
for perinatal death,
You have
as
those
well as
symptoms on a
potential
daily basis.
neurologic problems
The
with
medicine
the
you
baby.
take,
And despite the
keep it on
increased
the
demand
regular.
for home birth,
All they
not
use is
every
advanced
woman is a safe
versions
candidate
of
for
what
it.
You don't want a
have.
midwife who's taking everybody at every cost.
And
This
let me
is
say
not
this
the
one.
time
You
for
can
us
still
to
do
lower our
COPD,
risk
even like
standards.
A lot of people got it.
Still, for Bertolino, the current
I didn't
standards
just
hard to
take that and
accept.
amped it up.
Emotionally, and you want your husband to be there if God forbid
And
anything
then think about it.
happens.
And then too,
Weighing the
they
new
extended this.
complications of pregnancy,
Hold on a
birth
second, I'm
during
gonna
a
forget what I'm saying.
pandemic. Katie Beck, NBC
Check it out.
News.
Look at
And
that. Look at
Starbucks
that.
is helping those braving the front lines of the coronavirus pandemic. The company has announced that it will offer
It's
free
the-
coffee to medical workers, firefighters, and officers.
COVID-19.
Now, this will all be available through May 3rd. It starts right now, those free drinks. In addition, the Starbucks Foundation has announced it'll donate $500,000 to support first responders and healthcare workers. Yeah, anything to get by because their job is tough enough as it is any other time. Even more so, it's critical with all of us in this uncharted world that we're living in now. So any help that they can get
as long as we can give it.
Not only are they going like day by day, but they're going hour by hour and minute by minute. And I love that they're doing this all the way through May 3rd. That's great. Not just through this first 2-week period that we're going to go through. All right, thanks for watching Early Today. I'm Corey Coffin.
And I'm Francis Rivera. On today, a rare live interview with the Fed chairman and state of the economy. Hope to see you back here tomorrow. Meanwhile, stay safe, stay well,
Not here, right?
and we'll see you again.
You're watching NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news. This is all I've got left.
Good afternoon from the spin.
It's news made for your streaming world. NBC News Now.
Largest economic relief package in U.S. history, more than $2 trillion worth, is expected to get the green light, despite some last-minute drama.
This is not even a stimulus package. It is emergency relief.
First up, those direct payments to most Americans. For people making up to $75,000 a year, a $1,200 check. Couples making up to $150,000 would get $2,400, plus an additional $500 per child. Next, unemployment benefits rising by $600 a week for up to 4 months, now expanded to include gig economy workers and freelancers. Small businesses also getting a boost. Forgivable loans up to $10 million to keep paying their employees. Also in the deal, $500 billion for corporations like airlines, including new rules on oversight and a ban on stock buybacks. And more than $100 billion for hospitals. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo saying his state that's been hardest hit will get $3 billion, what he says is not nearly enough.
That is a drop in the bucket as to need.
New reaction to the president's suggestion that he'd love to have the U.S. opened up by Easter.
We're going to look at it. We'll only do it if it's good, and maybe we do sections of the country.
His top public health advisor, who's warned the outbreak will likely last well past then, calling the president's timeline an aspirational goal.
He's been very flexible about it. Even though it looks like he's made this absolute decision on something, he does have an open mind about it.
That bill now heads to the House, the president saying he will sign it immediately. And as for those checks, you can get them faster if you have direct deposit with the IRS. If not, it could be more than a month by mail. Francis?
All right, Peter, important information. Thanks.
This extraordinary crisis is leading to some extraordinary calls to action. New York University is graduating some of its medical students early so that they can join the battle as more hospitals around the country are besieged. Here's NBC's Tom Costello.
The doctors on the front lines, a sobering reality check on the pandemic. Desperate for supplies, New Jersey doctor Alexander Salerno has set up triage tents to handle 300 patients a day and spent $17,000 buying supplies on the black market at an 800% markup.
They open up the warehouse and you see pallets upon pallets of equipment, gowns, N95 masks, Purell hand sanitizers, Clorox wipes. It's insane. And I'm like, there's no moral compass.
At Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, critical care doctor Daniela Lamas knows the devastating impact of not allowing visitors to the hospital.
I'm worried about my patients taking their last breaths alone. I worry about this at the same time that I acknowledge that this is actually what we must do in today's climate with this illness.
At New York Metropolitan Hospital in Harlem, a surge in young patients on ventilators struggling to breathe.
At the present time, we have an adequate number, but the patients that are requiring the ventilator are increasing with each day, and I will need more mechanical ventilators.
New York Governor Cuomo again reiterating his hospitals are in immediate need of ventilators, urging other states to share theirs and promising to reciprocate as the virus rolls across the country.
We're asking for their help and their consideration, and we will repay it with dividends.
Other cities are already feeling the heat. Hospitals in Atlanta and Detroit say they're full. Illinois' governor warns in a worst-case scenario, he'll need another 9,000 ICU beds and 5,000 ventilators by April 6th, double what he has now. NBC's Morgan Chesky is in Miami.
Doctors here in Florida say the low number of confirmed cases does not reflect reality, and that's why this field hospital is being built to accommodate an expected surge of COVID-19 patients.
Meanwhile, at Unshattered, an addiction recovery nonprofit in upstate New York, They're working round the clock, making masks for local medical workers.
We anticipate being able to make about 1,500 masks per week, but we know that we cannot meet this shortage.
One more note, the nation's VA hospitals also say they're seeing more older COVID-19 patients, but they insist they're ready with masks and ventilators. Corey?
All right, Tom, thank you. As the healthcare system is pushed to its limit, one top hospital has now
But the situation, you know what'd be easier? If you invent a mask that actually works all day long, you won't need that many. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If they step back and invent a better mask, why do you need so many? Because these masks are so weak. You better get rid of 3 a day, you feel me? But if they take the time to invent one and you do what you do, then you only need a certain amount because you don't need to reuse them. They work all the time.
My goal was to give us about a 2-week buffer.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
That's not a lot of time.
It's not a lot of time.
And now the stark reality. Mass General has already tapped into their emergency supplies. Masks, sanitizer, and face shields. The federal government has yet to fill any of their requests.
We're trying, of course, not to use it all right now. We think we are still several weeks away from the potential peak of the outbreak.
The hospital has 150 critical care beds. They are scrambling to increase capacity by turning other units into ICUs.
We can get up to about 300 or so with the extraordinary efforts we've taken.
And then there are the ventilators.
We've identified more than 200 additional ventilators that we're looking to bring on board.
But if they run out, the hospital has a last resort plan.
We can actually take the tip of this and put it on a T-piece to connect it to 2 people if we had to.
People can actually share this?
They can share it in very rare circumstances. We do not do this normally.
Because normally a hospital like Mass General doesn't run out of the supplies critical to saving lives and protecting the staff.
The reality is right now the supply chain just can't keep up with our needs.
Because it's still
Every day,
You're
those
giving,
needs are growing.
but the
Stephanie
grass ain't got no
Goss,
choice.
NBC News.
They don't need it.
Starbucks is lending a hand to those braving the front lines of the coronavirus pandemic. The company announcing it will offer free coffee to medical workers, firefighters, and officers. These essential workers will be able to receive a free 12-ounce brewed coffee right now through May 3rd. In addition to free drinks, the Starbucks Foundation also announced it will donate $500,000 to support first responders and healthcare workers.
That's like if you got a bum leg, you can't go to the army whether they draft you or not.
Let's turn to NBC News on Janessa
no.
Webb, who's here with the
I
information.
don't think
Good morning,
they can.
Janessa.
Good morning. I just feel like wildfire season, we talk about it that in the
Because
summer,
I can have a
and we
focus
are
about
just
the thing. Why
starting
am I going to go
spring.
there?
We do have a
I mean,
small system
I'm
making its
scared
way
to death.
across the upper Midwest.
I can't
But the
help
big
nobody if I
weather
go there
story
and I can't do
today
a
is this
job
heightened
because I don't know.
awareness with temperatures. They're well above average across the southern plains. Also,
No,
the
but
gusty
still,
winds
they
are going to
can't.
be picking up to about
You're right.
55 to 60 miles per hour.
Right.
And that potentially could spark up the severe weather threat throughout your
They
afternoon.
can't, but that
Let's
was
look
not
at
the
the weather
question.
story of the
Because,
day.
no,
Here's
they
a closer
can't,
look
they can't
at your
force
day
me to
ahead.
come in.
I didn't say force.
Because you know what?
So you
That's
can see
like telling me
very
to come
warm
in
still for the
to
southern
put my life on
plains.
like
The
a
cold
something I
front
know I'm
going
gonna
to
get.
make its way through, even for the upper
Possibility.
Midwest to the
Possibility, no,
northeast.
I'm gonna
Daytime
get.
highs,
Yeah, there's a
they're going to be
possibility.
above
but
average
you know
for
what?
New York
I
City.
mean, I get what you're saying, but it's so close. It's almost same shit.
So watching the severe weather threat, it's heightened for
Since
this
you do
weekend.
have a better chance.
That time of year. All right, thank you, Janessa.
You do down in the army. Well, it also depends on what war it is, right?
A hockey coach saved the day by organizing a special parade for a 6-year-old Connecticut boy. Over 50 people came out with their horns, signs, and trumpets in their vehicle, keeping the distance, all to wish little Sammy Pex a very happy birthday. He couldn't have a birthday party the past 2 years. Last year, his mother was hospitalized for a rare brain disorder. This year, of course, because of the coronavirus, and glad to see the entire community coming together for the entire family and for them as well.
And we'll give you a happy birthday on
Yeah.
air. All right, grocery store staffers play a vital part in helping us get our food on the
That's
table, the
bullshit.
supplies
You know
we
that,
need,
right?
but how are they
Right.
managing?
But
And
it
what
was
can we do
amazing.
to ensure everyone's
Which
safety when shopping?
boy?
Here's NBC's Vicki Wynn.
Or no what?
In the
Got a
midst of
damn person
shutdowns
in a
and
glove
social
and a
distancing,
damn person in a
grocery
mask.
store clerks
You
are
trying
seeing
to
a
tell-
sustained spike
Oh,
in
shit.
demand
See, they
as
say you walking
shoppers
their hands
stock
into
up
that.
for a
Remember what they
pandemic.
said? No more than 50 people in a situation. How many people showed up at the field? 50.
Unseen levels.
Jared Labar usually works in the corporate office for King Supermarkets, but now he's in stores helping to restock.
Is there anything that people can do to help all of these workers who are on the front lines?
The biggest thing for us is, just to make sure that they are adhering to the social distancing.
To keep that distance and protect workers from the constant flow of customers, Albertsons, H-E-B, and Kroger are installing plexiglass shields in the checkout line.
Just remember that we're human beings too,
Yo,
and we have feelings,
You know
and yeah,
what's
just take care of
crazy?
us too, because we're
I
taking
was
care of
thinking
them.
about the funeral, right?
Workers asking customers to
They
be
had the
patient
windows up,
and
right?
understanding
And I was
when
thinking to
items are
myself,
sold
if
out.
somebody has it,
Despite
they
assurances
blow
that the
the window,
supply
can go
chain
through,
is working,
and then
some
they
stores
just
continue
send me
to
a
report gaps
plexiglass.
in
I'm
what
like,
they
yo,
normally
won't you
provide.
put windows?
We're actually out of ground turkey at the moment.
Still,
Pretty much,
essential
we
items
think
are
like-
available thanks
I
to
guess.
staff providing some normalcy during an abnormal time.
Somebody's got to be here. I mean, people need food. There's some things you can live without, food is not one of them.
Is it
And
that
on
much of a
social media,
shortage
a
that
flood
people
of
just walk around
appreciation in the
barefaced?
form of art like this. Workers hailed as heroes and thanked by many for being brave. This banner hung across the street from a store in Brooklyn. Thanks for the groceries. We love you.
They're really awesome, and to be here, like during this time,
Girl,
during
you're
this time
fully.
period where it's really tough, it takes a brave person.
With data showing the average
She's
grocery
not
store
dying,
worker
y'all.
makes
That joke was
$29,000 a year, these staffers are working overtime to provide basic services to keep society running.
Well, I don't consider myself a hero.
Karen, a cashier from New Jersey, tells us she's just doing her job.
It's our job to make sure that you have what you need. So next time
No,
you
it's
see
not.
the cashier, just say thank you.
You
Means a
know,
lot.
you and me. Remember the video we did earlier about the trucker? We could give a flying
Don't
fuck about
forget, you can get
cashier.
the
Why?
latest coronavirus news anytime on our
'Cause you got
live
this
blog at
upset guy,
nbcnews.com/coronavirus.
You don't
After
need
weeks
them.
of reporting a low
I
number
see
of
what
new
y'all saying.
coronavirus
They ain't
infections
gotta
live in
think you
China,
don't
the
need
former
to join it
epicenter of the
again.
virus is just
Right?
starting to emerge from lockdown. And
Yeah,
right now, the virus
they-
is running
No,
rampant in
I'm saying
hard-hit
with the
Europe.
cashier, it's something
Italy
that
now
doesn't have
has
to be.
over 7,500 deaths, and Spain now has
what's
reported
on
its
here?
highest death toll, beating out China. This is a senior
Yeah,
member
let
of
me
UK's
be the
royal
one that
family.
Oh, the bag.
For more, we
No,
turn
but
to
I mean, they
NBC's
don't
Ali
need
Abrizi
8,
live
9
in London
lines
daily.
like
You
everything
give us
goes
these
deep.
briefings and updates, and they are always staggering, Ali.
Like you might have one person with a mask.
That's
on
right,
and he
Francis.
keeps
Well,
you-
there's shock in this country with the news that Prince Charles, the heir to the throne, has tested positive for COVID-19. Spokesperson for the prince said that he's displaying mild symptoms but remains in good health. His wife, the Duchess of Cornwall, has been tested, but she doesn't have the virus.
Yeah, I mean,
They're now self-isolating in
no disrespect, no shade to
Balmoral
them,
in
but
Scotland. But Francis,
America,
Prince Charles was
motherfucker. We
attending
don't wanna have like
engagements amongst crowds, shaking
different
hands
for
till the
us, right?
12th of March, underscoring the
And shit, it
importance
don't even make a
of
difference for
social
them.
distancing and isolation, as this virus
If they don't
knows
get it,
no
what do you
class or race.
If they
In
do get it,
Spain,
what's
the
gonna
number
happen
of
to their
deaths
country? That
keeps
goddamn
climbing,
thing.
with a record 738 new fatalities reported in one day, bringing the total to 3,647 and surpassing China's tally. Spain's death toll is only second to Italy. Even the country's deputy prime minister has tested positive. In Italy, while the number of deaths more or less climbs steadily each day, the rate of growth of new infections continues to slow. Nonetheless, Italy's been ravaged and still has the largest death toll anywhere in the world at 7,500. In Israel, the government says it may have to impose a complete lockdown, except for essentials such as food and medicine, which means they would join a third of the global population estimated to be under lockdown. That's a mind-boggling figure of over 3 billion people. Francis?
Mind-boggling indeed. Thank you, Ali.
Nigga, I'm in a locked in room. Fuck you. Talk to me.
Hi everyone, I know we're all trying to flatten the curve, but this is our biggest update yet. Look at the jump and our largest line by region. We're gonna continue to see the growth spurt, but while watching the consistency of this, it continues to be up and down. We'll be right back.
They're dealing with what you call that? Light symptoms, but they're fine.
Wall Street cheering the Senate relief package to curb the pandemic's economic impact. For the first time since February, the Dow closed in the green for 2 days in a row, climbing about 500 points. Tech investors still feeling bearish. The Nasdaq slipped back into the red.
As the global pandemic literally separates generations, some kids are using social media to virtually reach out and bridge that divide. Here's NBC's Kristen Dahlgren.
At a time when many are feeling helpless, some Long Island kids are doing all they can to help.
Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well, and I will be singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Transporting local senior citizens on lockdown to a happier place. Sending videos and pictures through a program called Made You Smile. They say a song can bring people together. That may be more true than ever.
I appreciate this. I have 17 grandchildren.
You are my sunshine.
What are they doing with this?
For kids and seniors, a ray of light in even the darkest times.
What is this
Stay
doing?
healthy.
What is this supposed to
Bye.
be? What is
Kristen
they doing?
Dahlgren, NBC News, New York.
No,
Loving all these acts, this talent and everything. So wonderful. To uplift all these spirits. Or Kevin Bacon is finding ways to keep busy during quarantine.
Go wrong with that, right? Why do we care about celebrities?
Turkey Nation and President Popcorn Toss is listening to Bruno Mars' song "Locked Out of Heaven," and he joked with a pop star on Twitter saying, "I love that Bruno Mars has a song called Lockdown with Kevin." So you do some, right? You do some popcorn toss. You play that in a little bit of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, and you're all set when we're getting quarantining, right?
How many times did he have to do that shot to make sure he actually
He made
got it?
sure, right?
Well, the NHL season may be suspended due to the coronavirus outbreak, but the league's most popular mascot is keeping busy. Check out Philadelphia Flyers mascot Gritty, cheering on Gritty. As you see here, he's pretty much pumped up to watch pre-recorded programming of himself whipping through the air and diving toward the rink during the Stadium Series game last season. Love it. This is very meta, which is very 20.
It is, and I tell you what, leave it to Gritty during a global pandemic to somehow still make the headlines right there. But hey, if we're smiling, we'll take it.
Any videos that can keep us smiling, hopefully we keep you smiling as well. We really appreciate you watching early today. I'm Corey Compton.
And I'm Francis Rivera. Great to have you with us this morning. Your news continues right here on NBC and our NBC stations. Stay well, stay healthy, stay safe.
We need change on the horn.
You're watching NBC News Now.
The battle against ISIS is now in its final stages.
So you'd have smugglers using your ranch as a lookout point.
There have been report after report on unnecessary overcrowded conditions. That facility is cleaned every day.
State of the Union address. Is anybody really getting much out of this anymore?
President Trump became the first sitting U.S. president to set foot in North Korea this weekend. Welcome back to NBC News Now. We've got some breaking news.
All of a sudden, the entire apartment started rocking.
NBC News can confirm that Iran seized a British oil tanker
For not following international maritime regulation.
Right now, San Juan is at a standstill. The spin room. This will be the center of the local university.
Dehydration, fatigue, malnourishment. A lot of people are simply feeling hopeless for what lies ahead.
From the time that you and I have been talking, we've lost at least 2 football fields worth of the Amazon. It's just a horror story.
The Apollo 11 launch was 50 years ago today. I want to dig into our video archive.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Like, take a minute and sing something like Over the Rainbow over the phone and put it on the
Breaking overnight, in a 96-0 vote, the Senate passes a $2 trillion coronavirus aid package that includes direct cash payments to Americans. We've got the breakdown.
The death toll in the United States is growing. In New York, makeshift morgues are being built as positive cases across the country are fast approaching 70,000. And hospitals are pushed beyond their breaking point.
And we'll tell you about the new treatment that could save patients in critical condition. A busy Thursday ahead. Early today starts right now.
Glad you're with us this morning. Francis Rivera.
And I'm Corey Coffin. Now, American fatalities have passed 1,000 mark overnight. The Senate also approved a $2 trillion economic package. In New York, doctors are calling the situation apocalyptic, with the Big Apple facing the type of harrowing surges that plagued Wuhan, China. Here's what's happening at this hour. Our country has now surpassed 68,000 cases, with fatalities hitting a new high as the American death toll has now moved past the 1,000 mark. New York has the highest number of cases with just over 33,000. Mayor Bill de Blasio warned over 4 million New Yorkers, that is half the population,
will get the virus. Rows of white tents are being set up just outside Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan. As the city sets up makeshift morgues with a death toll rising. Officials are being told that morgues in the city are expected to reach capacity next week. As hospitals deal with an influx of patients and dwindling medical supplies, they are now faced with a harsh new reality. Whether they need to adopt policies for not resuscitating patients who test positive for COVID-19. Hospitals across the U.S. are grappling with this because it could expose doctors and nurses to the deadly virus.
Starbucks is also helping those in the front lines of the pandemic. The company will be offering free coffee to customers who identify as frontline responders. That includes anybody in the medical fields as well as firefighters and police officers. You will be able to receive a 12-ounce cup of coffee now through May 3rd. After helping out California, Tesla CEO Elon Musk now has his eyes set on the Big Apple. Musk will open the company's factory in Buffalo, quote, as soon as humanly possible. That factory will produce ventilators that are in short supply in the state.
With the lights temporarily out on Broadway, this year's Tony Awards have been postponed. Broadway's biggest night was set to take place on June 7th, but will be rescheduled, and a date has yet to be announced. Meanwhile, rapper Meek Mill is advocating for prisoners who could be at risk for coronavirus. His criminal justice organization launched the Safer Plan. The policy suggests governors to offer more medical treatment and protective gear for inmates and staff.
Relief is nearly on the way for millions of American workers sidelined by the pandemic. Late last night, the Senate unanimously passed a $2 trillion stimulus package to keep the economy afloat. It now heads to the House for a full vote tomorrow, where it's expected to sail straight to the president's desk for his signature.
This is a proud moment for the United States Senate and for the country, and we're going to win this battle in the very near future.
People came together to help the American people, and that's a great sign. It shows you that this Senate can function when the need is so real and so pressing.
So here's the breakdown. The deal means that Americans making up to $75,000 a year will get a $1,200 check, plus an additional $500 per child. And that money will come faster for people who have direct deposit with IRS. The bill also includes expanded jobless benefits, $100 billion for hospitals, $150 billion for state and local governments, $350 billion for small businesses, and $500 billion for corporations.
Cases of coronavirus continue to explode here in the United States and abroad. The state of New York is now the American epicenter of the pandemic, with more than 32,000 cases and over 300 deaths. But as cases rise throughout the country, the nation's hospitals are being pushed to the brink. We're working with limited supplies. Yet officials say the worst days are still to come. Here's NBC's Miguel Almaguer.
Our country faces a national emergency, and scenes like these unfold in communities big and small. New York State says it's the canary in the coal mine. Once bustling city streets have become eerily quiet, while lines outside hospitals stretch around the block. Makeshift morgues are being prepared. The governor says in 3 weeks, coronavirus cases will hit their high point.
They talk about
we still
what
have
I'm trying to tell you
the
about.
trajectory going up. 80% still self-resolved. About 15% of the people who test positive require hospitalization.
While the explosion of new cases in New York are slowing, the city's high density and residents leaving town could exacerbate the spread. Police are warning residents to avoid crowds. Some city streets will be closed to traffic so pedestrians can spread out. Across the country in California, where half the tested and taken than New York, the death toll, those infected, could easily become the highest in the nation.
We are anywhere from about 6 to 12 days behind what we are seeing in New York City.
Even in our country's most remote state, Hawaii, there is trouble in paradise as new cases skyrocket. More than half the nation has orders for residents to stay home. But some governors, like Florida's, will not issue a state mandate.
To order someone not to be able to earn a paycheck, that is something that I think is inappropriate.
But the World Health Organization says staying at home is vital.
Lockdowns slow down a virus like this. You have got to find those transmission chains, cut them to actually stop it.
In Louisiana, where the virus is spreading faster than anywhere else in the world, hospitals describe their
Because I
fight
was doing
against
something
the
else at
illness
the
as
time.
a war zone. Our Blaine Alexander is in New Orleans.
Bourbon Street is practically a ghost town, but exactly 1 month ago, more than 1 million people packed here for Mardi Gras, and experts say that is a big reason the numbers here are growing faster than almost anywhere in the
Yeah,
world.
you would think that
The crisis around the globe
they would
is
also
grim.
they're
While
supposed to have
Italy
Mardi
has
Gras.
the highest death toll, over 6,800, Spain has now surpassed China, 700 dead, and word that 71-year-old Prince Charles tested positive for the virus, but has not been hospitalized.
We thought she just maybe had the flu or had a bad cough.
In St. Louis, all 5 members of the Winehouse family contracted the virus. Mom Jane needed a ventilator to keep her alive.
No health issues in her past, no pre-existing conditions whatsoever.
With this California doctor living in a tent outside his home to limit exposure to his family, it's another example of sacrifice, as every American faces the same threat.
In cities like New York, social distancing appears to be working. With the number of new cases slowing, there is a glimmer of hope. Meantime,
you put it on when you get to the
those
car.
orders
I mean
away
to
from
the
crowds
store.
could last as
So
long
it can
as 2
so
months.
it have enough time.
Just astounding. Miguel, thank you.
The new stimulus package the Senate has just passed includes hundreds of billions of dollars for small businesses, but will it be enough? On Wednesday, California Governor
I doubt
Gavin
it,
Newsom said
but
that his state has seen
we'll be glad to get the
1
money.
million unemployment claims in just the past 2 weeks. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez has more.
New national unemployment numbers are expected to shock the system. Likely millions of Americans, like Cheryl Swanson, are filing claims for the first time.
No, that was
It's
just
a new reality that none of us really
kind
know
of
how
one
to
like the
deal
one
with.
that they had when you were on there.
From a restaurant in Colorado, says it took her 6 days.
Damn, I wish we could pull up our video
It was
to see
next to impossible. A lot of my coworkers
You seen it?
didn't even try because they could
Isn't
tell
it
from
Well, no,
all
you know
of
it
us
wasn't as much.
that it was just
The
madness.
dog,
GoFundMe is launching a small business
$1,200.
relief initiative.
Oh, it went
People can
down.
donate online.
And,
Across
yeah, and then
America, the great
you
adaptation
saw
is
it in
underway.
Jesus like I did,
Businesses
right?
are getting creative to survive.
Big rapping.
Yoga
I
studios
know.
are teaching down dog online.
Yeah.
Electricians in San Francisco
Yeah.
to deliver groceries.
I think our guys are
And then the next was
enthusiastic about it.
$2,700.
From
And
Chicago
$500
to
per
Omaha,
child.
Distilleries now brewing hand sanitizer.
We'll form us an assembly line and crank as many out as we can.
But now new concerns about the workforce still on the job. Less than a week after Amazon announced it was hiring 100,000 new employees to meet surging demand for home deliveries, workers in at least 6 of its warehouses tested positive for COVID-19. And with customers packing, grocery stores and pharmacies, employees there are on alert.
I really
The chance that I'm willing to take and my crew's willing to take and serve the community.
In some cases, the line for groceries stretches around the block. Some other stores here in the
I
New
just-
York
I just
area
feel-
have had
I
to
feel like I
temporarily
said,
close after employees tested positive for the virus.
What about my
Our thanks
kids?
to Gabe for that
man?
report. Storm chaser Josh
I'm
Kern
at least
provided a
like,
closer look
you know,
at the
like,
powerful
you know,
tornado that
right,
ripped
you know?
across parts of northern Mississippi on Tuesday. Kern was tracking the storm when it came very close to his vehicle. But the video captures the tornado's outer circulation. See it there?
I was hoping they would get
Trees
to the.
throwing debris into the windshield as it sucks debris into the funnel.
I can't.
Thankfully, Kern
I was
was not
scratching, I forgot
hurt in
it.
all of this.
Oh, you
Well,
did,
heat
no.
and dry
No,
weather
no.
are putting parts of the
No,
U.S.
I mean,
in
when you rip it
danger
off.
for
Yeah.
fire season. NBC meteorologist
No,
Vanessa
yeah, I was
Webb
trying
has
to
a
scratch
little
my
more on
arm.
Good morning.
But
And the
you-
circulation of that tornado, I mean,
I
it
know
hit
you're
the
gonna go
ground.
abroad.
So we are very
You
lucky
think
that
you
the
should find out?
situation wasn't a lot worse.
I
Now, we
wanna
are
know
talking
the
about the
areas
fire
of-
danger for the southern plains, and we should be talking about that in the summer months and pretty early right
You
now.
probably
It's
know where to do it
critical
now,
this
right? You
afternoon.
probably have to
As
make the
temperatures
decision
soar
down.
to the 90s, also gusts
I
that are
mean, you
going to be picking up
try
from
and
New
go for it.
Mexico all the way into central Texas, 55
Well,
to
you know where you got to
60
I know
miles
what
per
you
hour.
said, Cole.
Let's look at the weather story today. Here's a closer
I
look at
feel
your day
you, but
ahead.
when people say call, I just do the sideline, okay?
So still the upper Midwest, you're sitting at average. The cloud coverage will be in place. We do have a small system that's making its way across the Great Lakes. I think it will start to die out. So New York City, pretty dry this afternoon in the lower 60s. So this is very soon. I think this could be, you know, heighten awareness across the Southern Plains. So watch that closely.
Well, you think that spring showers would help out, not in this case. Thank you. In today's quick hits, music legend Elton John is hosting a live benefit concert this Sunday on Fox to raise money for groups fighting to stop the coronavirus pandemic. It'll feature performances from artists like Alicia Keys, Billie Eilish, and many more.
A runner in France wasn't going to let the coronavirus lockdown stop him from going the distance. He ran the length of a full marathon in his 23-foot-long balcony. He did it in just 6 hours and 48 minutes.
Kylie Jenner has donated $1 million to help purchase face masks and other protective gear amid this pandemic. Her doctor thanked her for the donation. The FDA is now allowing a treatment that uses the blood of people who've recovered from coronavirus to help others. NBC News medical correspondent Dr. John Torres explains how it works.
It's called convalescent plasma, and it's been used in past pandemics. The idea is when a patient recovers from coronavirus, their blood has antibodies that can be used on a patient that's currently infected. This is not FDA approved, but they are allowing doctors to use it on a case-by-case basis, but only for the sickest patients. It's not a cure, but it's a therapy that can be used in the interim while we wait for medicines to be approved in the next 3 to 4 months, and a vaccine hopefully in a year. Mount Sinai Hospital here in New York is telling me they plan to start using this treatment in the next few weeks.
Well, and hopefully they see a difference. Thanks to Dr. John Torres for that.
An international feud is growing as the Trump administration pushes the United Nations to highlight the Chinese origins of the coronavirus. 4 diplomats told NBC News exclusively the move has triggered a stalemate as the UN tries to formulate its response to the pandemic. Talks for a joint declaration have stalled over the administration's insistence that it explicitly state the virus originated in Wuhan. Well, the move has reportedly enraged China's diplomats. You can read more about this exclusive on NBCnews.com.
After months under lockdown in China's Hubei province, the former epicenter, the birthplace of the coronavirus, is beginning to lift travel restrictions. The move comes after the country reported a dramatic drop in local infections and deaths. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frey has the latest.
Officials in China are not declaring victory quite yet, but they are offering a timetable to relax some of the restrictions that have been in place for over 2 months now. Hubei province reopened its borders, and in the city of Wuhan, which we know is the hardest hit here, some checkpoints are being removed, there's some more freedom of movement, factories are coming back online, and on April the 8th, people will be able to travel in and out of Wuhan, and that's something they haven't been able to do since the city was locked down on January 23rd. There are still concerns about the virus spreading here, though, mainly from imported cases. These are people coming from other countries that are now at a higher risk of transmitting the disease. As well, there is thought to be thousands of asymptomatic patients here. It isn't clear because people who tested positive for the virus but are showing no symptoms have not been included in official statistics. The concern, of course, is that the relaxation of these restrictions could open new transmission routes for the virus, kicking off another wave of infections. Janice Mackey-Frey, NBC News, Beijing.
Come on. Oh, broke at the end. Broke at the end.
How much fun is that, right, with Jimmy Fallon? I've been watching Jimmy Fallon at home, and then one of his daughters have become the biggest star, but I love how he interacts with these other big names and celebrities in their own homes, too.
To do some interesting things, but honestly, I'm really enjoying it more than the highlights of the show.
Right? Seeing them in their element of home is fun. All right, today is a special day for the newest branch of the U.S. military.
You're not talking to nobody like David Joe.
A United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket will blast in orbit from Knappel Air Force Station in Florida just before 3 p.m. local time. It'll be carrying a high-frequency communications satellite.
Brenton Tarrant, the Australian man accused of murdering 51 people in last year's Christchurch mosque shootings, has switched his plea to guilty. According to the New Zealand police, the 29-year-old, who had previously denied the charges, admitted to 40 charges of attempted murder and 1 charge of engaging in terrorist acts.
40 charges of murder.
Court in May.
Bindi Irwin, the daughter of the late crocodile
I tell
hunter,
you.
tied the knot in a small ceremony at her family's Australian.
Get married?
Oh, but Bendy's my bitch.
Irwin shared the news of her marriage to her best friend Chandler Powell in an Instagram post.
Bendy
She said
got
her mother
married.
helped her get
What the
dressed.
hell
Her brother
do you
Robert
have
walked
the
her down
left
the
shoe
aisle.
at the
The
bottom?
wedding spurred online protests
What are
beginning
you
hours
doing?
before a family ceremony with more than 2 witnesses.
No, you're supposed look. You're supposed to
A
change
dire
it
warning from
over
billionaire Bill
here
Gates about the
around
dangers of
there.
relaxing social
So,
distancing
okay,
measures too early.
So then we're gonna go down. Let's see.
Really is no middle ground.
Let's see.
And it's very tough to say to
Okay, we
people,
go in. Here's
And then
Dumbo.
he would be going to North Korea.
Just in my bed, just keep scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. But with Jan, I want to.
Liberate. Make sure it's charged and people.
Remains a remarkable sight, a desolate Times Square in an increasingly desolate city of New York.
Yeah.
Well, good evening to you
Yep,
once
that's good.
again. Day 1161 of the Trump
What are
administration,
these?
223 days
Oh, come on,
until
come
our
over
presidential
here.
election.
I
And
know
this
I'm trying to
marks
tell them
2 weeks, 14 days since
trying
the
to turn
World
this
Health
in.
Organization declared the coronavirus a global pandemic.
Yeah.
And we have now a suggested name for this thing we're all living under, especially the 170 million, give or take, of us who are under some form of house arrest. People have floated out the term the Great Adaptation. And we should all hope that's all it is, by the way, and not a reformation of our country
we finna
or our
hashtag
lives
shit now?
long term or the
Oh,
U.S.
slide this
economy.
shit already. What are
The
you
Washington
doing?
Post put up some drones and sent out some cameras today to record just how desolate it is out there in the cities and municipalities that have shut down and chased the people inside.
How long
It's
is this?
historic. It has changed
Oh,
our
7
country.
minutes.
It's taken people from us, and sadly, it will take more. And it's been ravaging different countries on its way
you
here.
I can hold it now.
467,000 confirmed cases around the world now. The number of dead in Spain has now surpassed the death toll in China. As Great Britain remains in limited lockdown, we learned today Prince Charles has the virus, mild symptoms. He's self-isolating. In this country, our president used today's White House briefing to accuse journalists sitting before him of writing fake news. He went after our allies. He relitigated his case against NATO. He still says he wants to get people out and about starting Easter Sunday or before, as he added today. Even though such decisions would be made by governors and mayors and not made by him, he's still talking about being able to clear large sections of the country to go out and about again. Many smart professionals fear that is a suicide mission, no matter that the president thinks packed churches on Easter Sunday would be a beautiful thing. In the real world, our country has now passed 65,000 cases, up roughly 10,000 since we last spoke here. The number of dead Americans is inching toward 1,000. Washington Post says this was the deadliest 24 hours thus far. For contrast, here's a little bit of that briefing at the White House.
In the real world.
So important. Social distancing, such an important phrase.
That ain't gonna happen.
And we do it right now.
But again,
The more lives we can save and the sooner we can eventually get people back to work as we fight to protect American lives. We're also protecting American livelihoods. We want to get everybody back working. Together, this $2.2 trillion legislative package is bigger than anything I believe ever passed in Congress. It's hard not to be happy with the job we're doing. I'm not going to do anything rash or hastily. I don't do that. By Easter, we'll have a recommendation, and maybe before Easter, and at the end of the 15th day, or even during the 15th day, I think we'll have some kind of a recommendation. But our country wants to get back to work. The longer we stay out, the harder it is to bring this incredible. We were having the most successful years that we've ever had in the history of our country.
And of course, experts have pointed out this virus does not report to any calendar. At the Pentagon, the Surgeon General for the Joint Chiefs of Staff sounded much more cautious about this Easter deadline.
just got an update on modeling factors from a 3-week perspective based on the planning factors that we have. We think that we're going to continue to see this, no surprise, continue to grow.
We also learned that this may just be the first round in the battle with this virus. Here is what Dr. Tony Fauci said during today's White House briefing. Notably, this was after the president had exited the room.
We're starting to see now in the Southern Hemisphere, in Southern Africa, and in the Southern Hemisphere countries, is that we're having cases that are appearing as they go into their winter season. And if, in fact, they have a substantial outbreak, it will be inevitable that we need to be prepared that we'll get a cycle around. It totally emphasizes the need to do what we're doing in developing a vaccine, testing it quickly, and trying to get it ready so that we'll have a vaccine available for that next cycle.
And by the way, NBC News Count has 18 states and now the District of Columbia, now with some form or fashion of restrictions on movement or large gatherings. And today it was clear some local officials are in no hurry to roll those back.
This thing is not going to even peak, we don't think, until May 1. So I don't want to mislead anybody. This is not going to occur overnight.
If we see gatherings, we will shut them down, period. This is not just another day. And no day will be just another day until we're on the other side of this virus.
And we've been hearing a lot from the president lately about the swift improvement in coronavirus testing in our country compared to, say, South Korea, where they were fast to deploy testing, unlike us. Well, today, the president was once again boasting about the testing efforts.
I'm going to say it again. We tested far more than anybody else. We did in 8 days more than South Korea did in 8 weeks. That's a big number.
But what's the big deal?
Remember, we lost about 8 weeks in this fight by not testing, and both USA Today and NPR are debunking the president's last claim there. Our population is 6 times that of South Korea. They tested a much larger proportion of their population. There was also this from our president late this afternoon, quote, "The lamestream media is the dominant force in trying to keep our country closed as long as possible in the hope that it will be detrimental to my election success." As you might imagine, he was asked about that at today's briefing. Here's how he responded.
Media would like to see me do poorly in the election. I think there are certain people that would like it not to open so quickly. I think there are certain people that would like it to do financially poorly because they think that would be very good as far as defeating me at the polls. And I don't know if that's so, but I do think it's so that there are people in your profession that would like that to happen. I think it's very clear they would love to see me for whatever reason, because we've done one hell of a job. Nobody's done the job that we've done.
Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
Okay.